It's January 6th, 2024, and we have a lot to talk about today as we have a substantiated winter storm that's currently moving through the Northeast, bringing impacts across the entirety of the East Coast in some way, shape, or form. So let's talk about how this nor'easter is going to impact the East Coast and the Mid-Atlantic first, then we'll talk about some of the flooding and severe weather concerns today as well, and then we'll also give a sneak peek of what exactly is expected next week. So let's jump into it. Heavy snow in the Mid-Atlantic and New England is expected throughout the next couple of days. We'll jump into what the snow totals are going to look like in just a moment, but there is a smaller map. We'll magnify that so you can see it a bit better in just a minute. There's going to be impacts from heavy snow and wind as well. So because we're going to have heavy snow and strong winds, that's going to make travel very difficult. We'll also jump into how to make sure that you drive safely if you must travel in these conditions as well. There's minor coastal flooding possible in the Northeast as well, and that's mostly due to some of those stronger wind gusts that we're expecting. We'll talk about those in short order. So that could cause some minor coastal flooding along the Mid-Atlantic and southern New England coast with time. And ice impacts will likely cause travel issues in the southern Appalachians, and we're expecting that some places are going to get in excess of 1/4 of an inch of ice, especially along the Blue Ridge of North Carolina and Virginia, where there's a 30 to 50% probability of ice in excess of 1/4 inch. So that's quite a lot, and you'll notice on the lower map, those red areas, those are the highest chances of ice impacts that could significantly cause travel issues. So here's the weather setup. We have winter storm warnings. We'll start with the west coast. Winter storm warnings already in place with the second system that we'll talk about in just a minute. More winter storm warnings in New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, even in winter storm warnings, which is a very strange thing to see. And then we have winter storm watches stretching all the way from near Santa Fe, New Mexico, all the way up to Omaha, Nebraska. We have winter storm warnings in place farther in the northeast as well. It's associated with that nor'easter. It's clearly seen on the radar. This doesn't show the types of precipitation, but you'll notice that wall of precipitation that is advancing slowly but surely up to the northeast. You'll also notice the precipitation down in Florida. That could cause some severe weather concerns, that brief red polygon being a tornado warning, and there are also some flooding concerns in the mid-Atlantic, hence what we're seeing right now with some of those more well-defined rain bands. But again, winter storm warnings in place in the northeast, those stretching all the way from Virginia all the way up to Maine, especially southern coastal Maine. So places like Boston, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Albany, New York, Scranton, Pennsylvania, all within winter storm warnings. Baltimore just outside of winter storm warnings as well. So lots of well-populated areas well within winter storm warnings at this time. Those winter storm warnings mean that they're expecting 5 to 7 inches or greater of snow, and this could be of significant impact to travel. So if you're in the pink polygons here, do not travel unless you absolutely have to, especially after snow begins. And if you're in the purple polygons outside of that, those are winter weather advisories. They're downgrades from winter storm warnings, but still saying that you're going to have significant impacts due to winter weather. So again, please don't travel unless you have to, if within any of the polygons here, especially if the winter weather has already begun. If you must travel, we'll go over here in not too long how you can remain safe during that. So here's what the impacts are looking like. This is the Winter Storm Severity Index. It's on a level 1 to 5 scale, with 1 being limited and 5 being extreme. We go up to a level 4 in widespread fashion with little blips of level 5. However, don't pay attention to those. Those are very location specific because they're driven by Weather Service forecasts, which can also be very location specific. We want to look at the big picture here, and the big picture is stretching all the way from Albany, New York to southern coastal Maine. That's where we're expecting the biggest corridor of impacts to be. And this pretty closely aligns with the Weather Service's expectations of over 1 foot of snow, where you're seeing those major impacts. But major impacts mean serious disruptions are likely to daily life. That's in the red. If you're in the orange just around that, which quite a few people are in, that means that you're going to have moderate disruptions to daily life. They're not expected to be significant or extremely unsafe, but they will be considerable disruptions where you still do need to take action in order to maintain safety, especially on the roads, things like that. Shovelable snow from moderate impacts upward. Minor impacts, those are impacts that are going to be more inconveniences than anything else, but still need to be monitored. And limited impacts mean you could get some flurries, some snow showers, maybe a little bit of rain, stuff like that, but nothing that's going to be overly impactful in regards to winter weather. So let's talk about snow totals. Over 1 foot of snow is highlighted in the maroon-ish pinkish maroonish color. The purplish color that's so you have the blue, then you have the purple, then you have the pinkish reddish color. So if you're in the blue, that means that you're expecting 3 inches or greater. The purplish color, that's where you're at 6 inches or greater, and the maroonish color, that's at over a foot. So over a foot of snow is expected in some of the more mountainous regions of the Appalachians, especially in New York, some of the more mountainous regions there. I'm not sure if that's the Appalachians range or a different range, but Albany certainly close to that. Vermont, southern Vermont is expecting over a foot of snow. Southern New Hampshire in the same boat, heading into southern coastal Maine as well. But over half a foot of snow is expected in rather widespread fashion throughout most of New York, Pennsylvania, the most of Massachusetts, most of Rhode Island, most of Connecticut, numerous areas expecting near a foot of snow, but all those purple areas again expecting over half a foot of snow. Let's talk about ice now. This is not an official forecast. This is driven by a weather model, but this gives you an idea of how much ice can be expected over the next 2 days. And in the Appalachians, especially in the most mountainous portions, there are parts that could get over a quarter an inch of ice, which is what the Weather Prediction Center mentioned. However, if you're outside of that, over a tenth of an inch is expected in numerous areas. That's where those reds kind of start to come in, those deeper reds. If you're within the pinkish color at all, that means that you're at over half a tenth an inch, which is when things can start to get slick and dangerous on roads. So much of Virginia, some of West Virginia within that, so definitely something that needs to be considered. If you're in Roanoke, Virginia, for example, things could become a problem with time. So flooding is also a concern. I mentioned that briefly before, but if you're not in winter weather impacts in the Northeast, you're probably within this level 1 out of 4 for flash flooding. That means you have at least a 5% chance of excessive rainfall occurring or rapid onset flooding occurring within 25 miles of your location. What's that mean? That's basically a flash flood for all intents and purposes. So flooding is certainly possible today. It's certainly a concern, and that's rain driven, not coastal driven, that this outlook's for. So sudden rapid onset flooding, certainly possible, stretching all the way from Long Island near New York City, all the way down to portions of north central North Carolina. So wind is another impact that we talked about. This is wind gusts according to the National Blend of Models. So what we looked at just before was an official forecast. Before that, for ice, that was a weather model, and this wind forecast is also courtesy of a weather model. So this shows you the next 3 days or so in what exactly to expect with the wind. So the system moves in, it's moving up already, and as we move into the overnight hours, you'll notice especially along the coastlines there that winds could exceed those reds over 40 miles per hour. So wind gusts could exceed 40, perhaps even 50 miles per hour for some particularly unlucky people in terms of gusts, and that could again bring coastal flooding and minor wind damage. Let's now time out what exactly is going on with the snow. Here it is. Snow is expected to move from Pennsylvania all the way through the Northeast. So pretty much everyone in the Northeast is going to get snow to some degree, except for maybe the most northern portions of Maine. But it's due to this nor'easter, this low pressure system moving through. Some remnant lake effect snow is certainly possible. So this starts from right about now. This loop, we have snow moving through Pennsylvania. That moves through New York. That starts moving into Vermont, New Hampshire in the evening hours tonight, and then moves into Maine as we head into tomorrow morning. Snow begins to exit Pennsylvania by the time we get to tomorrow evening, and then in the overnight hours, the system moves offshore, and by the time we get to Monday morning, we should be seeing snow pretty much out of the Northeast entirely. You'll notice I want to look through this again. The ice that's also falling in parts of Maryland, Pennsylvania, that was falling through the Appalachians as well. So ice is pretty much going to be done in significant accumulation by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon as well, something else to note. I also want to briefly go over, this is hot off the press, the new Storm Prediction Center outlook for today. That shows a slight risk of severe weather just south of Naples. That's for wind damage, so wind gusts above 60 miles per hour being possible with a line of storms advancing through Florida. The marginal risk driven by both tornadoes and damaging winds. That's a level 1 out of 5, 5 being the highest. So isolated tornadoes and damaging winds are the main threats today. However, no hail is expected. This line is advancing north to south right along the contours for the severe weather risks, and will be out of Florida by the time we move into tomorrow, severe weather-wise, although more severe thunderstorms, not severe, just normal thunderstorms, general thunderstorms are expected in southern Florida tomorrow. So that's all the impacts with regards to this system, but do not be fooled. That does not mean it's over. You need to stay tuned to us and official sources as another system is moving in that's going to be a pretty big deal here. So this starts today and moves all the way through the 11th, and today the system is going to be impacting the West Coast. So winter impacts from coast to coast, that's the first thing that the Weather Prediction Center wants to drive home. So significant snowfall in particular is likely today along the West Coast, especially in the Sierra Nevadas, up the West Coast in the more mountainous regions. But this next winter storm, it's going to be bringing winter weather impacts to the West Coast, then to the Rockies, then to the Plains, and then to the Northeast. So this needs to be watched. This needs to be monitored closely. We'll have more details with time. Heavy snow is expected, and blizzard conditions are certainly possible for some of these areas. High winds are also possible ahead of the storm. I'd expect high winds above 40 miles per hour to be possible all the way again from coast to coast, but especially once you move past the Rockies, I'm expecting that everyone south of Nebraska, Iowa, and Wisconsin past the Rockies is going to get wind gusts above 40 miles per hour at some point during this. And flooding and coastal flooding risks are also possible. We already have a level 3 out of 4 moderate risk for excessive rainfall here with the system in the Northeast. We're not going to show specific areas, anything like that just yet, but you'll be seeing here fairly soon what exactly the expectations are as we lock in more things, we see more data, and we can give you a more confident forecast, things that you can actually act on. And the thing I want to close with here before I get into how you can prepare for this current system, and this also applies to the next system, is just how busy things are going to be with this next system. We're going to have severe weather moving all the way from Texas up to North Carolina in the span of January 8th to 9th. The same system is bringing heavy snow through parts of Kansas, New Mexico, Texas, all the way through to Wisconsin. Then we have hazardous cold weather that's being ushered in behind that. We have heavy precipitation that could be rain. So we have flooding concerns. We have severe weather concerns. We have winter weather concerns. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that could happen with this. There are even freezing rain concerns. So we'll talk more about that as it moves in. And then finally, I want to note there that January 11th through 12th, heavy snow in California, the 9th through the 11th heavy snow. That's associated with a third system that we aren't ready to start really talking about yet, but there will be another system behind the second one. So we have the system today, we have the system that's moving through here coast to coast, and we have another system that we're not sure how that's going to pan out behind that one. So it's an active period, active weather across the United States over the next at least 2 weeks. So stay tuned to us. We'll have videos nearly daily on the situation as it unfolds from myself and other people from the Advective weather team. So let's talk about some advice for what you can do. This is more geared towards the winter weather side of things, especially since the severe weather threat is not too potent today. However, we will have more severe weather advice here in the future. And if you want severe weather advice now, we do have a severe weather preparation video linked in the description that you can go and take a look at as well. So what can you do if you're caught outside in a winter storm? It's the first thing of safety. If you're caught outside, it's unsafe, it's dangerously cold, you have snow battering your face. The first things first, you need to find shelter, and if there's no shelter, build a lean-to or snow cave for protection. Build fire for heat. That stuff is super important. That's life-saving. So first you want to find shelter before you do anything else. You want to cover exposed body parts as well. This will prevent frostbite. This will also help insulate you, so body heat can be stored and you won't have issues with hypothermia. You want to melt snow for drinking water as well, but you don't just want to eat unmelted snow. This can lower body temperature to dangerous levels. Again, this is a protection against hypothermia. And you also want to move. You want to make sure that you're moving your fingers and your toes and exercising to make sure that you're keeping yourself as warm as possible. Ice and snow, take it slow. It's the second thing. This is about driving. So if you're driving, the first thing that's important is cleaning off your vehicle. That's very important because not only does it make sure that you have the visibility to drive safely, but it also prevents things like snow on the top of your car roof from flying off, hitting other people's mirrors, distracting them, and perhaps causing accidents that way. You want to make sure that you're slow. You don't need to be in a hurry with this. And don't use cruise control either. Roads can be slick, even if they look just wet. Cruise control can be extremely dangerous actually in winter weather, because if you go over a slick portion of ice and you start to lose that grip, a lot of people by habit disable cruise control by tapping their brake. Even just tapping the brakes while you're losing grip like that can cause catastrophic consequences. Finally, leave extra distance between you and other vehicles. That way, if you lose control or someone else loses control, you're not endangering those around you. Finally, shovel smart. So after the snow passes, there's going to be the want to shovel snow off your driveway, off sidewalks, off things like that. You're going to firstly want to make sure that you're dressing warmly, staying hydrated, drinking lots of water. It can feel cold. You won't be sweating very much. You may not be able to gauge how thirsty you are if you're just too kind of zoned into that. And you only want to move small amounts of snow with each pass of the shovel. There's no hurry here. There's no reason to overexert yourself, and you want to take frequent breaks. This protects yourself from overexertion, this protects yourself from hypothermia, and it protects yourself from frostbite. So, very easy things to do. The only thing is that it can make you take some more time than maybe you'd like, but safety comes before a shoveled driveway, in my opinion. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If you enjoyed it, you can let us know by hitting the like button down below or telling us in the comments. You can also subscribe to this channel to make sure that you don't miss another video that we make regarding these systems. And then you can also join our Discord server to have more of a community that you can talk to about the weather. We can nerd out about weather concepts, or we can talk about upcoming systems. Always up to you, but I'm always happy to jump in a call and talk to any of you if you're curious about what's going on with the weather. Well, with that being said, again, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow with another video.